Hello, and welcome to Season 7 of the FODcast, the podcast focused on the future of digital commerce hosted by Simply Commerce. Season 7 promises to continue to bring you some of the industry's brightest minds across the globe as we unpick the sector and where it's heading. From war stories to strategy and technology deep dives to future trends, we cover it all as we continue our journey to have one of the most popular podcasts in commerce. Before we start, if you enjoy our content, please do hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on, like and share on socials. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast, the future of all things digital commerce. Today, I'd like to welcome Matt Parkinson. Matt's probably best known for his role as founder of GeneCommerce. However, he's also co-founder at Shopthru and BlueFinch, companies I'm sure we'll discuss in the show. Today, we'll be breaking down the evolving world of Adobe Commerce, an area Matt has been associated with for more than 10 years, and one which I find particularly interesting given the extreme views in the market. It's probably one of the most Marmite platforms out there. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, James. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
Thank you for joining me. I've tried to give a high-level intro. Do you want to go into a little bit more detail and tell the listeners a bit more about your background and the companies that you have co-founded?
Of course. Well, I was just adding it up. I think I've been involved in Magento since day one, back in 2008. So that's actually getting on to quick maths,
Yeah,
17 years,
more
which
more than
seems
15 years. Yeah, sorry,
it's a, it's
disservice.
a, it's, it's a long time in various guises. So I've lived and breathed the whole life cycle from when it was conceived by Varian as a sort of competitor to very early days MS Commerce. And lived through the whole journey from eBay ownership through to private equity ownership, and most recently, the last 6, 7 years with Adobe steering the ship and making sort of the differentiation between Adobe Commerce and the open source or original open source Magento platform. So we've built a whole business around the platform, and you described it as Marmite. I think that's fair to say. It's certainly carved the path over that decade that others have tried to emulate and attack, and now the market is in a very different shape with lots of competing platforms, too many to choose from, quite honestly. But certainly Magento was one of the originals.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that statement. I think there's too much choice in the market, and I do wonder how that's going to develop over the next sort of 2 or 3 years with some sort of consolidation and maybe even some that don't quite make the cut. We know there's a few that are struggling right now, particularly in the UK market.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges for us as an industry and an agency trying to navigate that both for ourselves. Where do we put our training? Where do we put our tooling? And also for merchants, for retailers, where do they put their investment? What platform's going to be there in 2 or 3 years' time? What one's going to put the right investment in, make the right bets, and not least, coupled with all the other disruption that's going on in the tech industry, trying to navigate that over the next few years is a real challenge.
It certainly is, and I think you touched upon a good point there around like innovation and what have you. And it's this conversation has probably come in at quite a good time given the software as a service release from Adobe, which is like the next evolution in this world of Magento. So it's probably a good starting point, I guess, with talking about the original Magento open source platform, the variety of ownerships that it's had. You touched upon eBay originally, how that's progressed to Magento 2, and then obviously Adobe acquisition. So how have we got here? Let's start there.
It's not been a smooth trajectory. It's been a bumpy ride. We've as a sector ecosystem, long before Adobe took the reins, we've had to deal with many bumps in the road, and I think it's a testament actually to what's made Magento so successful over those years is the open source and community aspect. So irrespective of notwithstanding what's happened from a corporate point of view, with all that noise and disruption over those years and change of ownership and different roadmaps and big feature announcements that have gone nowhere, under the surface, there's been this consistent, robust ecosystem of developers and agencies that have, I wouldn't say propped up, but endured the platform over that decade and continue to invest. And it's a bigger workforce than any one single company could have, because there is genuine admiration and love for the platform, where people are genuinely trying to solve problems and innovate. It's a living, breathing ecosystem. And I think, irrespective of what's happening outside of that, that's why the platform's endured. And I think it's still why, whilst there's been a decline in its usage because of other platforms coming, it's still pretty prevalent. It still has a reasonable market share across the US, the UK. What you touched on about Adobe's announcement, recently, or last month, when they made the big announcement at Adobe Summit for their Adobe Commerce cloud solution, which is effectively their response to going to pure SaaS, created a bit of buzz, bit of hype. I think ChatGPT went into overdrive with agencies and tech providers casting their opinions on LinkedIn about what this means. People should try and remove that M dash out of their posts, because it's a real tell when they haven't really given a lot of thought. Just cut and paste, and there you go.
It's like a double dash, isn't it? Yes,
double dash. If you're going to use it, fine, but at least read it and try to format it rather than just cut and paste. It just easily turns me off. So there's a lot of buzz, and from one extreme going, this is game changing, this is the future. Other voices saying, what are they doing? This is the death of the open source Magento. I mean, we take a pretty nuanced view of this, in that it's not surprising that Adobe want to do this. This is what they do in terms of classifying products. They've got great heritage of doing that. They've transformed the Photoshop Creative Suite world in taking that from a CD-ROM through to a SaaS business. And I think, like most big tech companies, they respond to market trends and things like Gartner and Forrester, and say SaaS is the route. They can see the trajectory of some of the other bigger platforms, notably Shopify, and go, we need a piece of that pie. They've also done it in a way that is addressing some of the endemic challenges that Magento's faced over the years, which the new platforms do target and sell against, and those most notably time to market. How quickly can you spin up a site with minimal effort? The ongoing cost, total cost of ownership, which is that wonderful phrase that everyone tries to own, and coupled with trying to align it much more with its wider suite of DX tools, whether that be CDPs, their Creative Suite, their DAM, a lot of the AI content generation tools that they're bringing in, try to sort of own that unified commerce space a little bit more. So there's valid reasons from a strategic point what they're doing. My worry is that they do that at the expense of their existing installer base, both from an open source side of things and from their enterprise, their Adobe Commerce plan. So the way I look at it is, and I hope that they will look at it, is that it's one menu option on a suite of this ecosystem, this platform. So no other business can offer this suite of choice. So all running off broadly the same code base, same feature set. You have the choice of complete self-hosted open source if you want complete control and data ownership. You have the option to iPaaS it yourself or pass it yourself, host it yourself on their enterprise Adobe Commerce, either through their hosting solution or or your own host. You still have the benefit of being able to fully customize, fully own the code base and adapt it. Or if you want to be completely outsource that responsibility, the infrastructure, that you can go down this full SaaS route and start to delve into, I guess, more the microservices architecture. So what I look at it is that there's one full foundational platform, but you've got a number of choices depending on your particular business requirements, compliance, complexity, etc. And I hope that's how they will position that moving forward.
So, I mean, one could argue then that actually they're, by making this call, they're future-proofing their business, giving their potential customers a variety of routes to market that's going to best suit their business compared to maybe other platforms that are aligned to microservices only, for example, and going down that pure composable or kind of MACH route.
I'm sure we're going to get out to MACH, are we?
Yeah, I'm sure we will do, yes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's definitely a response to what's happening in the market. You can understand it, and one of the pain points of Magento, Adobe Commerce platform, is that the need to update and maintain the platform yourself. So by having a SaaS option, you're basically saying that, don't worry, Mr. Business, we look after that. You can carry on. Now, it's very early days, and architecturally they've completely changed how we are going to extend and customize that platform. Long gone are the days in that new world where you simply take an extension, a module off the marketplace and utilize that, or you build out or extend the code yourself. Any integrations, extensions, customizations will now need to be done in this middleware tier called App Builder, utilizing sort of a low-code, no-code approach. So technically very aligned with where the market's shifting, but it is a big shift. And that re-engineering is not going to happen overnight. They're putting a lot of effort and a lot of focus and money behind that to make the shift. And there's a lot of benefits of doing that right, but it's not going to happen overnight. So it's going to be a transition over the next year or two.
Yeah. Okay. So a question for you then. I want just to kind of get your opinion on here. You touched upon the loyal, I don't say fan base of Magento, right? I mean, the Magento community has been long-standing. The open source community, I should probably refer to, has been long-standing. What impact do you think like the going down the software as a service route might have on it? Because some would argue that the open source community is what has really kept Magento going over the last sort of 5 years over this transition, as we've seen more companies look to platforms like Shopify as an example.
So Magento really, whether it be under the private equity ownership or even early days Adobe, lacked any real, I'm going to get myself in trouble, lacked any real product development or innovation. I think that's fair to say. There were things that were going on, but in no way aligned with some of the investment that was happening on the other platforms. It was in a period of stasis, really. Any innovation that came about was seeded by community initiatives or efforts. And I think the most notable one is obviously what Wilhelm at Hoover has done with the front end.
Yep.
For years, the front end architecture and technology of Magento was problematic. It wasn't future-proof, wasn't fast, it wasn't scalable, and people got fed up on it, and they wanted to use tools that they could enjoy a little bit more and move a little bit faster. And what Wilhelm and Hoover did was actually what perhaps Magento or Adobe should have done themselves, was recognize that and re-architected that. Their strategy from about 8 years ago was to go down the PWA route, as a front end strategy. Yet another, fad that fizzled. So that, in my view, was a ill-conceived approach, and actually what should have happened was pretty much what the Hoover guys have done: re-architect the native front end. And by doing that, they really injected some enthusiasm back into the ecosystem, and you can see that with the uptick in terms of install base. Because up until that point, it was on a downward trajectory, and Hoover has turned that corner and demonstrated that with the right focus and the right technical strategy, you can solve these endemic problems and still benefit from what really Magento still offers, which is that level of customization, extensibility, and scale that you still struggle to get with any other platform.
Yeah, and remind me, I know when we spoke previously, you gave me an interesting figure on the market share that it still holds. Was it about 8%, 10%?
Yeah, I mean, it's you got to be careful where you look at these stats all over the place. I mean, and again, it depends how you break this down in terms of proper retailers. So if you look at actually the long tail, how many installs are there? WooCommerce is still way out there, but actually, how many of those are real, relevant businesses turning over a reasonable amount? I think if you look at the top segment of, reasonably about 150,000 known installs across UK and US, probably Europe as well, you're still looking at 12%, between 8 and 12% market share in that top tier of 100,000 retailers. So whilst the days have gone where it's absolute mass market, the WooCommerce days, even the long tail of Shopify, out of 1 million sites they proclaim to have, when you look at the bell curve, when you're looking at quality websites, they still hold quite a market share. It just turned from mass market into more quality than quantity.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's interesting because if you believe the hype you see on LinkedIn, right, you would think Magento is probably somewhere down at like 1% market share now. Because all I seem to see is how they're losing customers to Shopify, to commerce tools, etc. But actually, 8 to 12% is still a substantial number in what are three very large sort of areas. And as you said, it's not just about mass market now; it's about actually quantity. It's about quality. Sorry. So yeah,
we've had to endure that onslaught of negativity for years, rightly so in some aspects. Bad workers always blame their tools. You can have poor experiences in any platform, but I think the way I look at it is if they really believed Magento was insignificant, they wouldn't spend so much time trying to bash it. They would just ignore it. So I think that to me speaks volumes. And all these other platforms had to do something to break through and become meaningful in market share. That's really, I think, my view is where the principles of composable MACH and SaaS came from, because it was a differentiator to the old school, and it pointed out, shiny new thing over here that looked different and played to, when you talked about the Marmite, played to the negatives of the platform. And because it was open source, it was free, and everyone, relatively low barrier to entry if you're a developer, people did it really badly, and therefore it got a bit of reputation for security aspects because people weren't keeping up to date because there was a cost of doing it, or it was slow and sluggish because people did poor jobs in implementing the technology and went off, the reservation in terms of best practice. So understandably, it was getting bashed for those points, but in the right hands and doing the right thing, it still provides, I think, a level of flexibility and customization that allows businesses to set their own trajectory and strategy without being dictated to by technology, which I know you've covered in some of the other
Yeah.
podcasts, tech before business or business before tech.
So it almost sounds like the technology equivalent of a recruiter, where there's always someone out there that'll do it for cheap. They might not do a good job, and then it tarnishes the whole industry.
Well, exactly,
There we
and
go.
it's yeah, and then the platform didn't help. When they launched Magento 2, we all took a massive beating. War scars, loss of investment. It's amazing that we're still here battling through it. And that again goes back to the testament of the power of the platform. So we had to endure that. And it was the community that solved a lot of those endemic problems. Launched too soon, too buggy, too many performance issues, too over-engineered in certain places. But you get through that, and ironically now, I think the platform is so mature, so bedded in. A lot of those issues solved many, many years ago, and actually, businesses that are invested in it can do incredible things. We've worked with a retailer for about 8 years now. They're in healthcare, adult incontinence products. Brilliant business. Shifted probably 5 years ago to subscription first approach, and their business has just gone from strength to strength, taken off. Doubled, trebled in terms of the size, because they've really focused on building features, functionality, and technology that solve what they understand as their customers' problems, rather than being dictated to by an off-the-shelf app or subscription business. And what they've done around lifetime or churn rate, lifetime value, really push the boundaries in subscription technology. They wouldn't be able to do that I generally believe they won't be able to do it to the extent they can and have the control and flexibility they have on any other platform.
Okay, interesting. I guess it kind of leads nicely onto the next question around the platforms that are solving meaningful problems today, because we've already touched upon right at the start how there is just too much choice in the market right now. Now that there will be sort of repercussions of that later down the line. You've just spoken about how one of your customers has had a very successful few years trading, as they were able to really solve their customers' problems via the technology available to them through the Adobe Commerce offering. So yeah, there's lots out there. We're not going to break them all down, but what platforms do you see as actually solving meaningful problems today?
So I've got to say some nice things about some of the other competitor platforms now.
Unfortunately, so only a few
It's
though.
very, it's quite, it feels quite tribal. The e-com world at the moment, whichever pot you're in, you have to defend it, and your platform of choice is the answer to everyone's prayers. I find it, it's very, very polarizing. It's quite like the political scene at the moment. It's you have to defend it come what may, and rather than being open and honest in terms of where said platform is fallible. So often it's rare to get a really independent perspective or viewpoint. Everyone has their favorites, and I think also when retailers make that choice, there's a little bit of saving face. They don't want to admit there are problems or they've made a mistake in terms of platform selection. And there's certainly indisputable the success that Shopify's had. Yeah, so the platform landscape is really busy at the moment. Shopify is absolutely out there. They're doing a tremendous job. Their marketing is phenomenal. They're beating up every platform. They profess to be all things to all people, from mum and pop shop, starting off entrepreneur, to powering the biggest enterprises, businesses on the planet. And I struggle to understand how that can be a reality, servicing such a broad broad category, but undeniable their growth. Extremely low barrier to entry. Anyone can launch a store in hours. I think there is um, I don't think people talk openly and honest about the reality of it. Sometimes I liken it to the EasyJet or the Ryanair situation. Easy, low cost, get in. But then suddenly everything creeps up. They're great at offering, 60% of what you need for an e-commerce website. You just have to load in 20, 30 apps to pimp up your platform to make it relevant. And that to me creates other challenges around management, upkeep, and app creep equals cost creep. And
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to get a real understanding of that total cost of ownership when you start out, both with the payments, the rev share, the additions. So it's painted as a very easy, low cost, solve all your problems. And it's done an amazing job. And there is a herd mentality about that. Our competitors are on it. We just hear about it all the time. Why are we not on it? And it's difficult to sell against that when there is such a strong tribe and mantra out there. But the reality is very different. Some horrendous stories out there, like any platform. It doesn't solve all the problems. And the thing I've got a challenge with SaaS is you're ending up looking and behaving like everyone else. So in the world where retailers are actually fighting through the noise and need to create a point of differentiation, why use this so that having the same tech, having the same platform as everyone else just makes that job of differentiating your brand even more difficult.
I think that's a really interesting point you make there around the brand differentiation, because one thing that we're hearing about more and more is that if you're a clothing retailer, you're a clothing retailer. So what does make your brand different, and being able to express that online is something that's really important. Now, there will be many out there that they don't have a big differentiator, and actually it's about the cost of the product or whatever it might be.
Yep.
And for those businesses, you might make the argument that something like a Shopify platform is right for them. It gets them to market quickly, and it's relatively low hassle and what have you.
Yep.
But for those that do have a genuine differentiation, you would look at a different tech stack that allows more flexibility, that allows them to communicate that with their audience as well as possible. So yeah, I agree with that point.
Well, you wouldn't. I mean, amazing for startups, D2C brands, shifting boxes, undeniable. For businesses that don't have big tech resources, on digitally savvy, mature, and they can offload that. Perfect. Why wouldn't you do that? If you're building um, real IP and value into your business and try to differentiate and customize and use technology to solve your business problems, I don't think it offers the agility and flexibility that other open source platforms do. I mean, again, if you're building a house, you wouldn't build a house on rented land, would you? Because you're screwed. You have your house, and then the landlord on that land can change the prices, can change the terms, dig under it, change the fencing. It would just put too much risk on the platform, risk on the business to be so vendor locked in with one platform. Now, the argument is you could do that same with the code base, but at least you have ownership of that. You're not renting it, and you have control. You can move it, you can adapt it, you can control the data. For instance, you own the data, you own the information, you own the roadmap. Whereas being dictated to by some big tech firm, I think just puts unnecessary risk on a retailer.
Okay, two analogies as part of this answer. You've got the airline one at the start,
I've got loads. What else
which
would
I
you?
felt was really good actually. Just by the
Would
way,
you?
just for me, those really basic ones that just put things in a different perspective. And like we've all been stung by Ryanair or EasyJet, right? Where you get on the plane and they say, "Sorry, your bag's too big. Oh, here's another 70 quid just to get your bag on the plane." And it's like, okay. It's those sorts of things that for me, then they're like real golden nuggets.
Yeah, and that's when you've got to do your proper homework and research. Um, too often at the moment, you know it's presented as Shopify is your answer. What's your problem? So rather than go, what's your problem? Now let's look at the tech stack. It's not the answer to everything.
Okay.
And it's the same. It's the same with other platforms as well. They're just fighting for relevance. You can understand it. Every week there seems to be another platform that's the latest and greatest. Um, and broadly, that's I guess where Matt came from. That philosophy to try and unseat some of the main players. You know, this idea that monolithic equals bad, therefore you need to be all over here. And I think with all these um, businesses need to be careful they're not just chasing buzzwords. They're looking at actually what is a good long-term investment.
Isn't that what businesses do though, right? We've seen it before. We saw it with headless. We even saw it with PWA, like you mentioned. Like I feel like if you put aside, well, I feel like we all know that companies shouldn't chase buzzwords, yet they all do it.
They all do it. Yeah, I mean we lost. I mean the Mac thing. Um, you know, we lost out to that because uh, we didn't subscribe. I mean, I felt it was very much an ideology, a philosophy that was great in principle. Sold flexibility, but actually, what it delivered was just com complexity. Yeah. So, um, you know, the reality on the world was very different to how it was presented, and that has just led to an inordinate amount of technical debt, lost investment, lost money. It was, I think, a little bit of short-term thinking. I think when it was presented to me that you could have this amazing ecosystem of lots of different uh, services, tech platforms, all interconnecting, all operating seamlessly in this amazing utopia. And then you just get bored with your CMS, and all you have to do is unplug it and plug a new one in. What a load of nonsense. We know that that just doesn't happen in real life. There's a serious amount of work and investment in there. You've then got a myriad of API endpoints that require upkeep, and every everyone offers another point of failure. Um, it's it it didn't feel sensible. It felt like everyone was piling into it because it was a fad, a new
Mm.
hype. It gave too much control to CIOs, CTOs making those decisions rather than the business decision. And sometimes, and we saw this on a couple of occasions, sometimes purely to further self-interest careers and resumes rather than actually what was right for the business. People move on. Businesses are therefore left in this situation where they've got huge amounts of technical debt. We saw it through PWA, we saw it through headless, we saw it through, and now we saw it through the MACH alliance and some of these new tech platforms diving into this short-term thinking that technology is the answer, is actually just go back to what problems you're solving and be mindful of that. Yeah.
Do you not think that you touched upon, I can't remember exactly what you said about CTO putting too much power in the hands of a CTO, and I know you supplement that by saying that actually it maybe just put some more power behind their resume, but as someone that's technically minded yourself, you've spotted the obvious flaws in this process, right? I.e., there's lots of points of failure now. Is it possible to have something that's actually as easy to do as they said it was? Why is the CTO in this organization not flagging that themselves? Surely that should be the first thing they think of is okay, is this actually possible? Yes or no? Like how many points of failure do we now have? All these kind of issues that you've just touched upon. That's the CTO's job to be flagging that at the start, and not to just say, "Cool, this is going to be easy. Let's do it." Or am I
Yeah,
being a bit naive there?
no, you're not. I mean, I'm not going to generalize because there's many different rationales, and again, the philosophy very easy to sell, makes a lot of sense. So it's easy to put that good business case together. I think you also don't want to be the one person. Um,
The challenger,
you
I
know,
guess, go against it. Yeah,
yeah, emperor's clothing, isn't it?
yeah.
And if the world's going, this is the latest, greatest new, and you're like, well, not. You're going to have to defend that position just as much as the other position to your
Mm.
board or the shareholders. So there was definitely that, um, and you've seen it in the recruitment business, I'm sure. The surge in terms of developers into one platform or one technology, and then just drops off a cliff, and
Yeah, oh, yeah, for
suddenly
sure.
where have they gone? And then that does a disservice to us as a sector and industry in e-commerce because people lose faith and trust.
Yeah,
Um, and we've been victim. Some of the worst decisions we've made in terms of investment and tech over the years have been too upset my development team, too dev led, new technology, um, new programming language, new approach. Yeah, that sounds great. Invested into it before it's bedded in, tried and tested, and ultimately you end up over engineering rather than actually looking can we solve that, that problem easily without too much heartache. So it goes back to uh, whether you call it digital transformation or innovation, actually going back to solving the problems.
solving the problem. So repeat theme in all of my
It,
conversations. Yeah.
I know it is a bit of a cliche, but yeah, um, there's this notion that there's some silver bullet doesn't work. Ultimately, it shouldn't matter what the tech behind it. If you've got the right people, the right focus, the right skills, and the right attitude, um, you can solve the problems.
And you know what it just really reminded me of right then when you mentioned the silver bullet phrase? I think it's like everything in life. As humans, we're looking for that silver bullet just to solve everything. If you remove the technology conversation and look at fitness or losing weight, right? Everyone's chasing the how can I lose weight the quickest.
Yeah,
Reality is actually if you just have a controlled diet and you exercise, you're going to lose weight as long as you're in a calorie deficit. But people don't
yeah,
want that because it's boring. What they want is to take a pill or to inject something and suddenly they're a stone lighter. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same with fitness. You don't want to enjoy the journey of getting fitter. You just want to be able to hit your end goal within a couple of days. And I literally just thought of that then, but it makes sense. We're always chasing like how it can happen immediately. And actually, what we need to realize is there very rarely is a quick fix. You might get some good results, but actually, it's not going to be long term.
yeah,
And
yeah.
anything that offers a silver bullet is probably going to be too good to be true.
Yeah, I think it's a really good analogy. You don't get results overnight, do you? When you're training or looking for fitness,
Mm,
and to get the end result, you need to have an inordinate amount of discipline and focus and um, resilience to keep plodding on, knowing where you're heading, rather than the next
yeah.
protein shake.
That's it. Someone else who's also into their fitness. I hope that went down well.
Well,
Uh,
it
so just
did. Well,
quick.
I've lost focus in the last couple of months, but I'm trying to get back on it. But it is it's a really good analogy, and I think there is it does come down when we take on some of these platforms, rescue jobs, if you like. People are fed up and they're looking is there grass is only greener over the ridge, and actually no, it's because of the lack of focus, lack of understanding, lack of commitment to solving the real problems, and just accepting the status quo. We're coming in, there's a backlog of Jira tickets. Why do you accept that? Why do you just roll that over and over each month? We changed our whole support business into an eCommerce approach, because our ethos in Gene is around innovation and solving problems, and looking at something, getting really frustrating of why it doesn't work, or why is it not better. And we apply that not just to client websites, but actually to the agencies as well. And the support model that agencies used for years, I felt, was broken. You're just selling hours. So there was no incentive to actually fix the root cause. If you had a website, you sent you found a couple of bugs, you sent them over, sticky plaster it. Next month, they come back, sticky plaster it. There's no incentive for that to be addressed in terms of root cause, because the agency, fine, we'll just get another couple of hours burned down next month. So we've changed that. Take hours out of the equation, and now it's on us as an agency to make your site efficient and effective, so those things don't come back. So we'll put upfront effort this month to make sure that the root cause is solved. Server's not going to run out of space, or there's not some logjam in the database, so that next month those problems don't come back and we don't have to spend time fixing it. So just that simple mindset shift builds a better outcome for the platform and the relationship long term. So too often do we as an industry just sort of set back and become complacent and just go, well, that's how it is, go and go and go. And that philosophy we apply to the late. You'll notice I'm going to do a really cheeky segue into BlueFinch now, James, if that's all right. that philosophy we applied to our new business venture, which is BlueFinch Commerce, which is set up as with a mission of trying to solve purposeful problems in the ecosystem of Magento and Adobe Commerce, really to counter some of the challenges that other platforms are rightly so making against Magento, and sort of do what Hoover have done for the front end, but doing it for more the infrastructure and I guess the back end, or the foundations of the platform. So there are when we looked at it, and why are we struggling to sell against Shopify? And there are broadly three main reasons. One is the time to market, the ability to spin up the site without too much effort. The second one is that ongoing cost of maintenance, the total cost of ownership argument through upgrades, patching, feature releases, etc. And the third one is broadly the checkout, which is Shopify is known for, really high converting, fast checkout. Magento's inherent Luma checkout has some challenges, to put it mildly, around performance and extensibility. So these are problems we've solved for our clients as an agency. We're like, well, what we can do is package this up, package our learning up, and actually send that out, and hopefully spark some enthusiasm, much needed energy, much as the Hoover guys have done, into the world. So the first one was a patch management tool called BlueFinch Patch, which basically takes the upgrades and the security patches that come out that are released less frequently than they were, fortunately, but they're still there, and that puts a strain, a resource, and effort onto business. You can spend 6 to 8 hours running through the latest patch update to do it. So $1,000 of dev time in order to do that, and that's if you've got a clean website, no problems, no compatibility issues. And we've automated that and reduced that down to a couple of minutes, so no developer involvement. So it will save a huge amount of time for merchants and agencies, and effectively automates a lot of the compatibility checks, tests, and QA. When Adobe released their updates on the 8th of April, a couple of weeks ago, big update on various different versions. We logged on in the morning, we had 30 websites ready to go, all their checks and green ticks. And if you think, 8 hours a site, 30 sites, just for us, the effort of maintaining that 2 or 3 or 4 times a year is profound. So we've solved what Adobe are trying to do with their SaaS offering to take that problem out of the equation. We've managed to come up with a solution that will tackle that for the existing 150, 200,000 user base out in the market as well. The time to market, the go to market, again, trying to create that SaaS element, but still have the benefit of an open source platform. So now with our build tool, anybody, non-developers, can go through with a few clicks and set up, configure, bundle in other tech providers, whether it be shipping, payments, marketing automation, taxes, and then deploy to a host of their choice, a site. So taking out 3 or 4 weeks worth of developer effort into a couple of clicks, couple of minutes, and gets them on the right foundation to build the site. And the third one is the checkout. It's an open source checkout platform that allows merchants sort of a table stakes platform where they can get up and running with all the latest digital mobile payment options, a fast, flexible framework that agencies and developers can extend on, but it gives, again, a really fast starting point that can mirror some of the platforms out there. So it's a kind of a suite, empowering, developer-centric solutions that solve those endemic problems, and that comes back to the philosophy of what innovation is. Not trying to go, look, let's build the next AI swanky thing over here. Actually, let's solve problems that people are feeling today with neat, elegant, easy to access solutions. That's BlueFinch.
Nice. And obviously, the first two kind of speak for themselves, but certainly the patches one, being a non-tech myself, goes a little bit above my head. But just the checkout one you mentioned, I've been a long-term admirer of the Shopify checkout. I think it's amazing. More recently, the Stripe checkout as well has stood out. That seems to be integrated into more companies. And again, it's very similar. You put your phone number in and it's got all your details auto-saved. You have your almost always on the website on your phone anyway. So the convenience is amazing. I think for me, that kind of experience needs to be the norm for retailers if they want to be able to compete. I couldn't tell you the amount of websites that I've left because the checkout has been a bit clunky, and I know I'm not alone. I think that the percentage of people that leave checkouts for similar reasons is crazy high, and that's just so much revenue that's dropped by retailers, right?
We did a research piece about 18 months ago. Full disclosure, PayPal's a big customer of ours. We've worked with them for about 8 or 9 years. We built a lot of their PayPal and Braintree tech for the Adobe and Braintree ecosystem. And we did a research piece to look at checkout abandonment. And you're right, even despite all the advances in technology, user guides, experience, maturity of the ecosystem, industry stats still put checkout abandonment around about 70%, which is crazy. And when we looked at particular areas like mobile wallets, Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, because they seemingly should take a lot of the friction out of the system. So as a rule, if you didn't have one of those, about 60 touches on your phone to check out. If you don't have autofill, you may put your name in, 16 characters for your credit card. It all adds up, step. So you can understand why people bail. And we were really taken back with the findings. So we profiled the top 500 retailers in the UK. About 53%, I think it was, only 53% had a mobile wallet, Google Pay, Apple Pay, or a one-click solution, PayPal, at what we deem a strategic position. So that's the top of the checkout, either in the basket cart or where Shopify has it, which is before you have to fill in any details in. before the form fills. And we thought that was incredibly low, seeing as broadly it was accepted consensus that having those wallets would increase your conversion rate 15-20% or what have you. So why weren't businesses doing it? And when we profiled a lot of those businesses, it came down a lot of the time to the cost, the effort, the risk of actually making that change into their checkout, whether that because their PSP didn't support it, or that because checkout's quite risky, people didn't want to do it, which we thought was crazy. And which is why obviously Shopify has such a high conversion rate, because out of the box, because of their links with Stripe or ShopPay, it's already bundled into the solution that people use it. So we took that view. You can obviously get all of that with the Braintree work that we've done, but with other PSPs, it wasn't as accessible. So we thought, okay, well, let's give out a checkout framework that gives people those stable table stakes, irrespective of what PSP they're using, providing the PSP has the compatibility. So you install this checkout and effectively mirror what you've got on Shopify. You get those digital wallets at the strategic position. You get a fast, highly optimized UI, but you also have the benefit, which you don't get on Shopify unless you pay $2,000 a month, to be able to customize that checkout. You can still have it as an open source and extend and do what you want and differentiate that brand so you don't look the same as everyone else. The other benefit, as you rightly pointed out, that the Shop app or the Stripe link element with PayPal's new Fastlane technology, it's broadly the same principle. So coming to the UK, I think at the end, H2 this year, 2025. As soon as you put your email in, it will recognize that you're a PayPal customer and ask you if you want to pre-populate your checkout. The same sort of principle. So suddenly they're going to allow mass autofill on guest checkouts. And as you can imagine, the PayPal access to data globally, chances
huge.
are it will have your details. So a lot of the PSPs are obviously trying to trace this. Chase this goal as well.
Yeah, and right. So I mean, for me, it's such a, I don't want to say simple area to make it sound like it's straightforward, but it's an area where I think we, as you said, if 53% of the top 500 retailers in the UK only have a digital wallet, I mean, there's a really easy area for a lot of those other retailers to be investing in, where there is a clear ROI. Let's be honest, there is very clear evidence that investing in a more seamless checkout process is going to increase their ROI. So,
and it comes back to your point, why are we chasing these fads when actually a lot of the time it's the basics that still are not looked after. Headless PWA, that sorts out. No, just sort out the speedy checkout. That will have a bigger impact than chasing some latest fad.
Exactly that. Okay, so lastly then, what, in your opinion, what does the future of commerce look like? Broad question, and we could probably speak about this for a long time, but let's try and keep it fairly succinct. How do you see things developing over the let's say the next 5 years?
I think that no one can predict what's going to happen. Depending on what mood I'm in the day, I think our industry's screwed and AI is just going to take over everything. And then the next day, I'll take my family to Edinburgh and I have to use 36 tickets and the Wi-Fi doesn't work on the train. And I think, the world's got some way to catch up with technology. So it depends. It's a really difficult one to navigate. I think what's the phrase? You overestimate the time it takes for change or underestimate whatever. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on and it's quick moving, but businesses take a while to catch up for that. I think the ecosystem on platforms is obviously a lot more mature. People are on the second or third generation iteration. There's fewer replatformings going on. and people are concentrating a bit more on that differentiation.
Mm.
Rightly so. How do they cut through? I think the customer acquisition world is going to get turned up on its head, fighting for traffic. The old model of Google Ads versus people using AI now to search and discover products is really interesting.
Just obviously, they've got the big talk on LinkedIn at the minute around the Chat GPT Shopify connection. I mean, that's been all over my
Yeah,
newsfeed the last 24 hours. I need to do some more research into it, but I mean, that's going to flip on its head, like you said.
yeah. I think it's really difficult to predict. I think the only advice we have internally is to remain agile and making sure we're still not chasing the fads because fads today is technical debt tomorrow. Making sure we're just keeping on with what customers' needs and expectations are. Just on the future, I mean, you mentioned another one of our businesses, which is a carve out called Shopthru. This is our nod to where we think e-commerce is going in the future.
Okay.
It is the mission is allowing people to buy anything anywhere, and it's flipping the idea that if you want to buy a product, you have to go to a retailer website to buy that. What we're saying is we should allow you to make that transaction, that order, wherever you discover the product, whether that be, in a newspaper online, a blog, a forum, QR code, an ad, dare I say, an AI agent. And at the moment, we're targeting the affiliate marketing world because they are struggling with a number of endemic problems around unfair attribution through cookie tracking, through woeful conversion rate, even outside the industry norm. And just a very high level. If you're into fitness, aren't you? So do you know calisthenics? Do you know any calisthenics?
I do. I don't
You
do it
do.
myself, but I know of it.
There you go. So you're searching for the next calisthenic bar or something. Generally, you end up on hobbyist or interest publication. I don't think Calisthenics Monthly exists, but I don't know, something
Yeah.
Pro Fit or something like that, or Independent Best. You read the review, see the things. Okay, yeah, that's it. You click the link to buy, rather than getting directed out to Amazon, for instance, 40% of the time, Amazon or any other retailer. What we're doing is we're allowing you to buy that where you are on the independent or on that magazine website by surfacing up their checkout in front of you with one-click payments. You're buying off the retailer, order goes straight into the retailer, but you can carry on your minimal friction. You can carry on with your journey without being distracted and bouncing off to other websites and getting distracted by voucher code websites or plugins or pop-ups or having to go through the full checkout journey. So it's really solving so many challenges around cookie tracking and attribution to make sure that the publication gets their fair commission as well.
And it's allowing the customer to buy anything from anywhere, right? Which I
Wherever they are.
guess is also linking into what we just discussed with GPT and being able to buy it through the platform. You're doing the same thing just through Shopthru, right? And not basing it through Chat GPT right now, but as you said, maybe that comes through there or other AI agents in the future, right? So
yeah, any surface, any signal can now be transactable.
yeah. Which I guess is, as a consumer, what we want. We want as little friction to buy something as possible, so we can buy it quickly. And obviously, as a brand, that's what they want as well, is to sell it as quickly as possible as well. So
Yeah,
exciting.
exactly. The most valuable commodity is giving people back their time. So that's the premise. Cut out all friction.
Well, let's see. So okay, so bold statement then. In the next 5 years, as consumers, we will be able to buy anything from anywhere.
Make bold statement. Next 5 years, Shopthru is going to transform the landscape of e-commerce.
Okay, love it. Watch this space.
Watch this space.
Nice. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up the conversation.
Well,
Love
thank
it.
you.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
really
I really
enjoyed it.
enjoyed that
Thank you,
one. It was
James.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, thank you
thank
for
you, James.
joining me. Really enjoyed it. Lots of cool insights. I learned a lot, definitely. And for me, more than anything else, it's really interesting just to really break down that Adobe Commerce landscape, which we have done. I know I've been slightly confused with the evolution of the platform. For a long time, I didn't realize you could still have Magento 2 and Adobe Commerce. Um, so yeah, I've learned this conversation. I'm sure others have as well. So I appreciate your time, Matt. And
I did think of another analogy. I didn't get it in. It's like, when we were growing up, Skodas were really, really crap cars, weren't they? But now
yeah,
they're really good cars. But
well,
people
are
have
they
been
cool
burnt.
though?
But they're not cool, right? They've been, but they're, but yeah, MPG is there. So and the Roland Ivan. But you're right. It's not the new shiny cool Shopify miles. That's the thing. So,
Yeah, I think I prefer the airline comparison. I'll be honest, but there we go.
yeah,
Right,
nice.
thanks
We'll
again,
see how many people are pissed off. But yeah, thank you for that.
and I'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, James. Bye.